Hello and welcome to today's Star Wars lore episode featuring Captain Panaka. For most of the Naboo, years of relative peace and tranquility, which were dedicated to the pursuit of personal, artistic and cultural development, had actually resulted in a people who were largely devoid of militaristic leanings. This made Panaka rather unusual among the peaceful inhabitants of Naboo. Panaka was not an aggressive or violent man by any means, he just simply recognized that force might sometimes be needed to protect his people and their culture. As a young man, and with his parents' reluctant approval, Panaka enrolled in the local Republic forces. He was quickly assigned to the Special Task Force assembled to deal with local system pirate incursions, and he served his term with distinction, and made the acquaintance of a pilot by the name of Rick Ollier. Now, Panaka's extensive experience landed him an immediate and enthusiastic acceptance to the Palace Guard once he had served his time with the Republic's forces. Now, Panaka was subsequently persuaded to join the Officer Corps of the Royal Naboo Security Force, where his experience could be put to better use in training new recruits. Now, Panaka's tactical expertise, marksmanship, and command ability saw him quickly rise through the rank of the security force. Panaka served under Captain Magneto, who was then personal protector to King Varuna. However, all was not well in the royal court of Naboo, and external events would soon propel Panaka onto the galactic stage. Now, under the initial guidance of Senator Palpatine, Naboo's representative on the Republic's Senate, King Varuna had begun to expand Naboo's off-planet interests and galactic influence. Palpatine's intention was that Naboo's trade links and diplomatic position should be strengthened, at the same time increasing his own influence. Unfortunately, however, King Varuna became overly enamored with the wider galaxy. Breaking with many of Naboo's ancient traditions, he instituted an advancement agenda in which new technology, methods of administration, and even legal precedents were imposed upon both the people and institutions of Naboo. These moves proved extremely unpopular with the people. Captain Magneto felt powerless to stop the king from dabbling in more unsavory business dealings. Even Senator Palpatine himself was ignored, and the king's deals with unscrupulous and dishonest partners ultimately led to a scandal. To avoid further embarrassment, King Varuna abdicated and went into seclusion in the Naboo countryside. Now, around 6 months before the Trade Federation blockade of Naboo, and before the ceremonial handover of rulership from the disgraced king to the newly elected Amidala, Varuna met a mysterious accidental death. Captain Magneto resigned, feeling her position had become untenable in the face of her being unable to protect the king. And the months that followed the death of Varuna, the Royal Naboo Security Forces acquitted themselves well against those who attempted to take advantage of the situation. Panaka calmly but forcefully took command and ensured the security force remained organized and focused. His actions brought him further praise and guaranteed his ascension to the rank of captain. And he was now in overall command of the security forces. Now, unlike the late Varuna, Queen Amidala actually listened to her advisors. She accepted Panaka's plans for her protection, which included the introduction of a decoy system. Amidala's 5 handmaidens were handpicked and trained by Panaka to serve the queen as companions and bodyguards. They were also selected for their likeness to Amidala herself, allowing them to serve as decoys when danger threatened. Now, Panaka was also partly responsible for the choice of Amidala's personal pilot, his old friend Rick Ollier. Now, the upgrading of the queen's protection was actually very well timed. A few short months after Amidala took office, the issue of taxation of trade routes exploded and Naboo found itself under blockade by the greedy Trade Federation. And Panaka was actually proved correct. Even as it emerged that Jedi negotiators had been sent to bring an end to the blockade, the Trade Federation began an invasion. Communications were jammed across the planet, preventing Panaka from organizing any form of resistance, and not one to give up, Panaka was ready to take advantage of any opportunity to get the Queen to safety, even as he, Amidala, and her advisory council were being marched off to detention camps under armed guard. Now, the intervention of 2 Jedi gave Panaka just the opportunity he was looking for. With no other choices left, Panaka accompanied Queen Amidala as the group escaped Naboo. Now, when the royal starship was damaged while escaping the blockade, they landed on Tatooine to make emergency repairs. Panaka was actually very unhappy with this decision, but his misgivings were overruled by the young queen. Although he was instrumental in persuading the Jedi to agree to her plans, Panaka was even less happy when Amidala disguised herself as one of her handmaidens and insisted on accompanying Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn as he searched for the starship parts they needed. Events transpired somewhat better than Panaka had imagined though, and the group was soon on its way to Coruscant, where Panaka hoped that Senator Palpatine would be able to help them plead their case to the Senate. On Coruscant, Senator Palpatine tried to assure the Queen that the Republic would most likely not take action, and she eventually realized that nothing would happen in time to save Naboo. Unwilling to see her people enslaved and her culture destroyed, Amidala returned to Naboo with a daring plan, taking Captain Panaka with her. Critical to the plan were the Naboo Royal Security Forces. In Panaka's absence, the men and women of his forces, who had not been captured, had formed themselves into resistance cells. Upon his return to Naboo, Captain Panaka called together the resistance leaders to brief them on their role in the Queen's plan. While the Gungan army drew the main body of the Trade Federation away from Theed, Amidala, the Jedi, Panaka, and his volunteer troops would sneak into the palace to capture the Trade Federation leaders. The Queen's plan actually worked well, but when the Jedi were drawn off to deal with the menace of Darth Maul, she and Captain Panaka were forced to continue their journey to her throne room without their help. The battle through the halls and corridors of the palace was hard fought, with the Queen and Panaka splitting off from a group headed by the handmaiden Sabé, disguised as Amidala. This ruse fooled the Nemoidians into lowering their guard, even as they had the real Amidala and her team at their mercy. Within moments, after some sharpshooting from Amidala and Captain Panaka, the leaders of the invasion were captured. Above Naboo, the droid control ship was destroyed, rendering the occupying droid army useless, and Panaka was content in the knowledge that he and his troops had acquitted themselves well. Now, when Padme Amidala's term as queen ended, Panaka served the new Naboo queen, Jamilia. Amidala did not stay out of politics for long, however, and eventually became Naboo's representative in the Republic Senate. Although Queen Jamilia was now his primary responsibility, Panaka still looked after Amidala's safety whenever she was on Naboo. When Count Dooku and his allies left the Republic and formed the Confederacy of Independent Systems, a group of disgruntled spice miners rallied outside the Queen's palace in protest. Senator Amidala was in the palace meeting with Queen Jamilia as the rally grew more unruly. After ensuring that Queen Jamilia was safe, Panaka met with Amidala. He wanted to make sure the senator would be protected during her return to Coruscant to vote against the upcoming Military Creation Act. A security plan was quickly formulated, and Panaka entrusted his nephew, Captain Typho, to protect Amidala during her time on Coruscant. Before she departed for the Republic capital, Panaka informed Amidala that Viceroy Nute Gunray, having escaped punishment in the courts, had joined Count Dooku's separatist movement. Captain Typho worried that Senator Amidala's opposition to the Military Creation Act would be misconstrued as her siding with the separatists, and Panaka cautioned the young senator to tread carefully, as the separatists were becoming known for using violence and subterfuge against their enemies in the Senate. A few months after the Clone Wars had broken out, Panaka learned of the secret marriage between Padme Amidala and Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker. Panaka then informed Supreme Chancellor Palpatine of his findings, and then he used this information to his advantage when turning Skywalker to the dark side of the Force. Now, when Palpatine eventually declared himself Emperor and formed the Empire from the rubble of the Republic, Panaka found himself benefiting from this new regime. He remained loyal to the Emperor and served Palpatine faithfully. During the early days of the Galactic Civil War, Panaka was promoted to Colonel and worked with Naboo's Royal Security Forces to stop the criminal organization known as the Skark Tippers from terrorizing the planet's innocent inhabitants. Panaka actually tasked Agent Willock to investigate the activities of the Tippers, but he soon went missing. Panaka was therefore surprised when he was contacted via Willock's comlink a week later by a newly recruited member of the Royal Security Forces who had infiltrated one of the Tippers' bases. Panaka and their agent devised a plan that eventually resulted in the disbanding of the Tippers and the death of their leader, Johnny Skark. In appreciation of their bravery and valor, Panaka rewarded the Royal Security Forces agents with a large amount of credits and a special Royal Security Forces jacket. The Royal Security Forces were then relocated to the command of Panaka's nephew, Colonel Typho. Panaka was eventually promoted to commander and tasked with leading an expedition to the uncharted planet of PL 40112 CE 021105, which is a bit of a mouthful, of the Selfrom system located in wild space. And it was during this expedition that he met Bertroff Hissa, a human Sephoi hybrid, and participated in a forced alliance with the near-humans of the planet to drive off an invasion of an interdimensional species called the Rosums. Panaka and Hissa were the only survivors of the conflict, and after returning to Naboo, Panaka managed to recruit Hissa into the Imperial military, despite its xenophobic tendencies. Now, for his bravery and spotless military career, Panaka was later promoted to Moff of the Commonwealth sector, replacing Padme Amidala's niece, Senator Pooja Nabiri. And to show his continued admiration of and loyalty to Palpatine, Panaka presented the Emperor with an ornate statue crafted on Naboo. The statue was placed in the Emperor's receiving chamber on the second Death Star and was lost in the battle station's subsequent destruction during the rebel assault that sparked the Battle of Endor. And that is the history of Captain Panaka. So if you liked the video, be sure to leave a like, let me know what you thought of the video, subscribe if you haven't already. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you on the next one.